Hey everyone, welcome to another weapon guide for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. This time it's for the lance. The lance is a heavy weapon with a big shield, allowing you to block and counter incoming attacks while staying aggressive. It primarily deals cutting damage, while the shield can deal blunt damage. Before we move on, here's a brief look at the chapters that I will cover in this video. As usual, I play this game with a mouse and keyboard using base world keys. Check this table for the equivalent keys if you use the Iceborne keys, or a controller. Now, let's move on to the guide. Before we start with anything else, let's first understand some basic properties about guarding. This is because the lance is primarily known for its ability to block incoming attacks with a shield, also known as guarding. While there are other weapons that can guard, the lance's ability to guard is one of its core identities, and even has many special moves related to guarding. To use the regular guard, simply press and hold down the guard button. With your weapon sheathed, you can also use this to draw your weapon into the guard stance. If you only tap the button without holding it down, the hunter will perform a quick guarding animation before you can do anything else, but it's still a fast way to draw your weapon. While guarding, you will block all directional attacks that come from an angle in front of you, with about 220 degrees angle of coverage, but will not block directional attacks from behind. Some monster attacks are considered non-directional, so you can guard them from any direction. Roars can be guarded, but are considered directional. Holding guard will not cost any stamina, but will stop your stamina from regenerating until you let go. Any movement during guard will allow stamina to recharge again. While guarding, every hit you block will cost some stamina. Without enough stamina, attacks will break your guard and deal full damage. If you successfully block attacks, you may either take no damage or some chip damage depending on how strong the attack is. You may also receive a knockback for blocking stronger attacks. Like all blocking weapons, there are 3 levels of knockback. Light knockback, which for lance is like no knockback at all. Medium knockback. And heavy knockback. More knockback would result in more chip damage and more stamina cost. You can improve your blocking capabilities by equipping the armor skill simply known as guard, which will reduce the knockback, chip damage, and stamina cost, but it still depends on how powerful the monster's attack is. The guard skill comes in 5 levels, and you generally want either 3 or 5 levels for effective guarding, depending on what you're planning on blocking. There is another armor skill known as Guard Up, which comes only with 1 level. Guard Up allows you to block some special attacks from some monsters. Without Guard Up, these attacks will ignore your shield and deal full damage as if you are not blocking at all. There are also attacks that are truly unblockable no matter what, such as the sticky ice, grab attacks, and some special moves, so even Guard Up cannot help you here. You must avoid them with other methods. Another useful skill is Offensive Guard. It does not improve your guard, but will reward well-timed blocks by boosting your attack if you activate your guard right before an attack will hit you, also creating a visual glow and awesome sound effect. Using directional keys while guarding will turn your character around and you can only walk forward. But if you hold the slinger aim button while guarding, you can move backwards and sideways while guarding. Next, let's look at how your movement and dodging is affected when your weapon is drawn. First of all, your movement speed will be very slow when walking with your weapon out. Your dodges will become step dodges with short distances and less invincibility. Dodging with no directional input will have you hop backwards. Directional keys will make you dodge forward in the selected direction. After attacking, you can also dodge to the left and right, and adding a backwards direction will make you hop back further than usual. The side hop and far back hop can also be used after another dodge, but keep in mind that the dodges actually come in sets of 3, so the fourth dodge is actually the first dodge in a new set of triple dodges. and this first dodge cannot be a side or far back hop, only a forward or neutral back hop. The far back hop will always act as the last hop, resetting the triple hop, so ideally it should be used as the third hop. Some other actions such as blocking and aiming will allow you to perform side dodges as well. Next we can finally start to talk about the basic attacks and the triple poke combo. When your weapon is sheathed, neutral left mouse will ready your weapon without attacking. Forward left mouse will perform a draw attack in the form of a mid-thrust. With your weapon drawn, left mouse will also be a mid-thrust. A mid-thrust is a quick forward poke that hits once on a low angle, it moves you forward slightly when you poke. Right mouse will be a high thrust, this is the same attack but will be aimed upwards at a higher angle. The high thrust also deals slightly more damage than the mid-thrust. The mid and high thrusts will be your main offensive move set, and they can be comboed up to 3 times, which is why we call it the triple poke. You can mix them in any way you like, such as mid 1, mid 2, mid 3. High 1, high 2, high 3. Mid 1, high 2, mid 3. High 1, high 2, mid 3, you get the idea, basically any combination between mid and high with no restrictions. The third hit of the combo will always deal more damage than usual, and this will deal the same damage for both mid and high thrusts, unlike the first 2 thrusts where high thrusts deal more damage than mid thrusts, so high is slightly more favorable, however you'll mainly be choosing your attacks based on the position of what you're trying to hit. After the third poke, the hunter will stop to recover before you can restart from the first poke again. To circumvent this, you can use a back hop after the third poke to reset and start a new combo. This also helps pull your position back since the pokes move you forward. So it's as simple as that: poke, 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 hop, poke, poke, poke. Unlike other weapons, you cannot use directional keys to adjust the attack direction during a triple poke, it will always continue poking at the same direction. You must reset your combo in order to change your attacking direction. Double mouse will give you the wide sweep, which is a slower single hit attack that deals the same damage as a mid-thrust, swinging from right to left and reaching behind you. The sweep is also part of the triple poke combo, but unlike the thrusts, you cannot do 2 sweeps in a row, so you must use a thrust between 2 sweeps. The sweep also does not deal any extra damage if used as the last attack in the triple poke combo. While holding your guard, you can also use left mouse to get a guard thrust, which is basically a mid-thrust performed while guarding, and is stationary. Keep in mind that you are only guarding in between each thrust, and will not guard while performing the thrust itself. You go back to guarding after thrusting so it does not directly combo into any other attacks. Needless to say, the guard thrust is not exactly useful, so you're fine playing Lance without ever using this move. Next let's look at the counter thrust, which is one of your primary ways to counter incoming attacks and stay aggressive. You can perform the counter thrust by using right mouse while you are already guarding, or use it immediately by pressing both buttons together. It can be used between your combos. Using the counter thrust will automatically block a single attack before retaliating with a high thrust, which is faster than using a high thrust manually after a regular block. The move itself will not cost stamina, but blocking anything will have the same stamina cost, chip damage, and blocking angle as a regular guard. However, it has improved knockback animations. Light knockbacks are followed automatically by an immediate high thrust. Medium knockbacks are followed automatically by a slightly delayed high thrust. Heavy knockbacks will lead to no thrust at all, but you can chain this into a power guard instead, which is a move we will discuss later, and can provide you with a chance to retaliate. The counter thrust will only block one hit before automatically counter-attacking, and you will get hit during the counter-attack if you use it on multi-hit attacks. However, if multiple hits happen exactly at the same time before your counter-attack starts, then you will block one attack while absorbing the other attacks with hyper armor, taking less damage and avoiding knockbacks. Unfortunately, teammates' attacks can trigger the counter attack. There are two variations to the counter thrust. One is to hold down the guard button so that you will maintain the counter thrust stance for 2 seconds. If anything hits you, you will automatically retaliate with a high thrust as usual. If nothing hits you for the whole duration, you will then release a stronger thrust that deals more damage. The game just calls this attack counter thrust, and it's one of your higher damage moves. This trips your teammates. This is not very useful since you need to hold the stance without blocking anything to trigger the stronger thrust, but there is a different way to use the stronger thrust and I will teach you about it later. The other variation of the counter thrust is used by tapping the guard button without holding it down. This will perform the cancel thrust, which is essentially the same move as the counter thrust but without the slow waiting stance, and quickly cancels into a high thrust instead. This can also be used while you are already guarding. If anything hits you during the short window, the effect is exactly the same, you block and retaliate with a high thrust automatically. But if nothing hits you, the cancel thrust can be treated as a recovery cancellation to reset the triple poke combo, so you can poke, 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 cancel thrust, poke, poke. Regardless if anything hits you or not, the counter thrust will count as the first poke of the triple poke combo, so it always chains into poke number 2. If the counter thrust successfully blocks an attack, then you can chain it into another counter thrust, allowing you to use them back to back without any limit. Without blocking anything, it is impossible to use 2 counter thrusts back to back. There will always be another attack between them. If you successfully block something, adding any directional input will change your high thrust into a mid thrust if you need to hit lower. By mixing defense with offense, the counter thrust helps you to stay aggressive, and combos seamlessly into your poking combos, so it's an extremely important move. Next we will be looking at the power guard and its follow-ups. If you use the dodge button during the counter thrust stance, you will perform the power guard. This can also be done by pressing dodge during a medium or heavy knockback from guarding, as well as a heavy knockback from counter thrust, provided you're still holding your guard button. To maintain the power guard stance, you only need to hold down the guard button, not the dodge button. The stance will end when you let go of the guard button. While in the power guard stance, you will have a complete 360 degrees blocking angle, so you can block attacks from any direction, including behind you. After holding the power guard stance for 1.2 seconds, you will see a bright pulse on the shield. This means that you now have the effects of guard up, even if you did not equip it. While in the power guard stance, knockback from all attacks are greatly reduced. Light knockbacks do not move you, and medium knockbacks barely move you. Heavy knockbacks still push you back despite being reduced, so it is still potentially dangerous. While the knockback is reduced, the chip damage is actually higher when blocking with power guard. Maintaining the power guard stance will drain your stamina, and the stance will end when you run out of stamina. The stamina drain will pause when you block something, and resume after, so there's actually no stamina cost to block anything with power guard, but you lose stamina for having nothing to block instead. This makes power guard a great option for blocking multi-hit attacks without running out of stamina. Since the counter thrust can only block one hit and is bad with multi-hit attacks, canceling into power guard will also help deal with situations that are bad for counter thrusts. You can also exit the power guard stance by using various attacks. Using right mouse during power guard will give you the stronger thrust that we talked about earlier. This method is actually useful since you will always get the strong thrust, regardless if you block anything or not, so it is your best way to quickly access the strong thrust, which is one of your best attacks. You can also use it in any chosen direction. This is a very useful attack given its high damage output and ability to poke in any direction. And also allows you to retaliate even after heavy knockbacks. Much like before, the strong thrust chains into poke number 2, and cannot be chained directly into counter thrust. As usual, it will trip your teammates. Using left mouse during power guard will give you the leaping thrust. This will have you leap forward while thrusting forward, which is a great repositioning move for the lance given how slow you walk. The leaping thrust hits 3 times, though a partial miss can lead to less than 3 hits, and the 3 hits can land on different parts. It's a good attack if you need to reposition. Similarly, this can be used in any chosen direction during power guard. The leaping thrust counts as the first attack of the triple poke, so it chains into poke number 2. The leaping thrust cannot be chained directly into counter thrust. This move also trips your teammates. Double mouse during power guard will start the dash attack, which is the next attack we are going to discuss. You cannot do it in any direction like the other 2 attacks, but you can still turn around during power guard itself, so you're fine. Now we will talk about the dash attack. Aside from using double mouse during power guard as shown before, you can also get the dash attack by using double mouse when you are guarding. This can also be used immediately by pressing the inputs together. The dash attack is a forward charge that will constantly drain stamina, and it stops when you run out of stamina. Given how slow you walk, this move can help to cover larger distances quicker. Directional keys during the dash can adjust your dashing direction gradually. While dashing, you will constantly deal damage to anything you collide with, and it is possible to continue dashing in place if a large monster is blocking your way, allowing you to deal constant damage to it. If you hit left or right mouse, you can end the dash with a finishing thrust that hits once, and it's the highest damage hit for the lance. Shortly after you start the dash attack, you will see a faint glow as you enter a level 2 dash, and an even brighter glow as you enter a level 3 dash. Each dash level will increase your dashing speed, and provide a damage boost until the dash is over, improving the damage of your finisher and jumping finisher. The finisher for level 2 and level 3 dashes will also be upgraded to a finishing twin thrust, hitting twice instead of once, with the second hit having the highest damage. The finisher direction can be adjusted. Teammates will be tripped by the dash itself, as well as both the finishing thrust and finishing twin thrust. Regardless of dash level, you can also end your dash with a reverse attack by pressing backwards plus left mouse, turning you around while attacking. It deals the same damage as your finishing thrust, but has a faster recovery that allows you to chain into attacks faster, but you cannot chain into a wide sweep since it shares the same animation. This will not trip your teammates. All 3 types of finishers do not count as the first attack of the triple poke, so you can chain into poke number 1. You can also end your dash with the dodge button to just stop, or use the guard button to stop while guarding, which is great for emergencies. While dashing, forward plus dodge will give you the advancing jump, which will have you jump while hitting once mid-air, before landing and resuming the dash attack. It costs some stamina to jump, but you can jump multiple times until you run out of stamina. During the advancing jump, you can use left or right mouse to perform the advancing jump thrust. This hits once and builds up mounting, and will end the dash regardless if you mount or not. This allows you to mount monsters without needing a ledge nearby. While dashing, dodging to the left or right will give you the dash step, allowing you to take a step to the left or right while continuing the dash. The dash step will cost stamina, and you lose 1 dash level each time you use it. While dashing, backwards plus dodge will perform the dash turn, turning around to charge at the opposite direction. While this does not cost stamina, it will completely restart your dash level from level 1. This can be done endlessly until you run out of stamina, very useful for annoying your teammates.
Yeah, boy.
Using the guard button in the air will also start a mid-air dash attack that hits once and continues after you land. You can do this with your weapon drawn, or sheathed. As usual, you can use an advancing jump thrust in the air before your dash attack reaches the ground. The dash attack has unique interactions with the environment. If you dash towards certain climbable walls, you will automatically run up and perform an advancing jump in the opposite direction before continuing the dash. The direction can be adjusted. You can use left or right mouse to perform a jumping thrust before the hunter lands, ending the dash. When dashing onto ledges, you will automatically climb up. While dashing off of ledges, you will automatically perform the advancing jump before continuing the dash, which again can be chained into an advancing jump thrust before you land. While dashing downwards on a slope, the hunter will slide and quickly upgrade the dash levels to 2 and 3. Solid walls will deflect and end your dash attack. The dash attack deals decent damage, but where it really shines is when you combine its finishing thrust with the triple poke to form a repeatable combo. The combo is as simple as looping 3 pokes into dash attack finisher, and then rinse and repeat. This will be the Lance's highest damage combo. It is ideal for punishing openings that are large enough, or used when the monster is down. If you dash past the monster, use a reverse attack to face the monster again. Now let's talk about the guard dash. The guard dash is one of your best mobility moves and allows you to move forward while simultaneously blocking attacks from the front. If you are already guarding, you can use forward plus left mouse, or else you can use all 3 buttons at once to use it immediately. Normally, different directional keys will still lead to a forward guard dash but towards the chosen direction. But after certain actions such as attacking or dodging, you can perform a sideways guard dash to the left or right, as well as a backwards guard dash. You can also use these directional guard dashes on their own if you use the slinger aim button together with your guard dash input. You can practice by pressing the buttons slowly first. Guard dash will cost some stamina to use, but covers a much larger distance compared to your dodges, making it extremely useful for repositioning even without blocking attacks. If you block any attacks while guard dashing, the stamina cost and chip damage still applies, but you are able to dash through attacks that cause light and medium knockbacks instead of getting pushed back, greatly improving your offense and positioning. You cannot dash through heavy knockbacks though, those will still push you back. Guard dash can be chained into a leaping thrust with right mouse. The combined movement of a guard dash plus leaping thrust can keep you very mobile and help you cover distances very quickly. This outshines the dash attack for covering medium distances, and is even better considering you will block attacks while guard dashing, but of course you will not block during leaping thrust. You can guard dash again in any direction after a leaping thrust, which is great for mobility as well as blocking incoming attacks. This is especially important since the leaping thrust cannot be chained into counter thrust as mentioned before, so your option will be to guard dash again if something is about to hit you. You can adjust the leaping thrust direction, and as a reminder, leaping thrust counts as the first poke and chains into poke number 2, and will also trip your teammates. Guard dash can also be chained into a shield attack with left mouse. This is a single-hit shield bash that deals blunt damage, and unlike the leaping thrust, the shield attack can be chained into counter thrust, but cannot be properly chained into another guard dash, thus you cannot use a directional guard dash after. The shield attack has a short reach, but combos into your pokes faster, and chains into poke number 1 instead of 2. You can use the shield attack over the leaping thrust if you do not need the extra forward movement, and can also use it if you want to build up stun damage. You cannot chain 2 guard dashes back to back, but if you wait for a bit, the guard dash will turn into a regular guard briefly, and after that you can use guard dash again, but only a forward version. Guard dash will automatically climb onto ledges. You will also automatically jump off ledges and block attacks while you are mid-air. From the mid-air guard dash, you can also perform a jumping thrust with left or right mouse, or a dash attack with double mouse, and as usual, the aerial dash attack can also be cancelled early into advancing jump thrust. If you allow the guard dash to land on the ground without interruptions, then you can chain them into the regular follow-ups. Next, let's look at the aerial attacks. While in the air, left or right mouse will give you the jumping thrust, hitting once and building up mounting, and can be used with your weapon drawn or sheathed. The advancing jump thrust you get from the dash attack has exactly the same properties as the jumping thrust, so it's pretty much the same attack, except the advancing jump thrust can carry the damage boost from dash levels. This dash level boost also applies to the jumping thrust from dashing off a wall. Both attacks count as the first poke of the triple poke, and chains into poke number 2. As mentioned earlier, using the guard button while you are mid-air will start a mid-air dash attack, and as shown before, it can be chained into an advancing jump thrust before you land. I've also already shown the mid-air guard dash and its follow-ups, so I won't repeat it. The lance's mounting finisher will hit 3 times. Next we will look at some slinger and clutch claw related moves, which are only available with Iceborne, starting with the guard shot. With your weapon drawn, you cannot aim your slinger normally like other weapons. Instead, hitting the slinger aim button will put you in the guard shot stance. While in this stance, you will automatically block directional attacks from the front, but you cannot move except turn to face a different direction. However, you can dodge out of this stance. Stamina recovery will pause since you are treated as holding your guard. Medium knockbacks will have light knockback animations when blocking with guard shot. Heavy knockbacks are still heavy. Firing your slinger will give you a slinger burst instead of a regular slinger shot. Left mouse during guard shot will give you the leaping thrust, which is one way to combo after your slinger burst. Right mouse during guard shot would put you in the counter claw stance, which we will talk about soon. To switch back to the normal slinger aiming mode, you can use this button while aiming. This is your lock-on button. I will include all buttons here since it's not in the table. In the normal aiming mode you can move and fire your slinger normally, and can also fire the clutch claw normally. If this confuses you, you can choose to sheath before using the clutch claw, but keep in mind that the lance has a slow sheathing speed. Speaking of the clutch claw, let's look into it. The weapon attack is pretty fast and hits twice with decent damage, only the second hit can break parts. It sends you flying backwards, and will tenderize parts in one use. It will not drop slinger ammo unless you have the clutch claw boost skill. Aside from using the clutch claw normally, the lance also has the counter claw, which is one of the most exciting moves for the lance. You have 2 ways of entering the counter claw stance. You can either use the slinger aim button while you are in the counter thrust stance, or you can use right mouse while you are in the guard shot stance. Either way, you hold the stance by holding down the slinger aim button. Letting go will stop the stance. Maintaining the stance will drain stamina, and the stance ends as you run out of stamina. You cannot move but can dodge out of this stance. If a monster hits you with a body part that can be latched onto with the clutch claw, you will automatically block that attack before entering a clutch claw animation that sends you flying, before clutching onto the part that hits you. You will fly towards the monster even if it is far away, giving you some of the coolest moments. The counter deals 2 hits of damage, and the second hit as you reach the monster will deal blunt damage, potentially stunning them if landed on the head. After latching on, you can perform any clutch claw action such as the tenderizing weapon attack, turning the monster, or a flinch shot. You can also change positions or jump off. Here are some gameplay examples simply because it's such a cool move to use, even if it's not always the best option. There will be situations where this move is useful though. Counter claw blocks directional attacks from the front as usual, and the knockback is ignored for a successful counter, but the stamina cost and chip damage will still apply. You receive hyper armor for a few seconds after a successful claw counter, preventing you from getting thrown off while flying towards the monster, as well as after latching on, even if you change your position after latching on. Keep in mind that hyper armor can potentially be dangerous since you can get hit multiple times without getting flinched or knocked back, and hyper armor also does not work against grabs and pins. Some attacks will not trigger a claw counter, especially attacks that do not hit you with body parts, such as a fireball. You will only block these attacks, and much like the guard shot, medium knockbacks will have light knockback animations in the counter claw stance, while heavy knockbacks will still be heavy, but as mentioned earlier, the knockback is ignored if the clutch claw is triggered. Finally, we will finish up the video with a combat summary as usual. While the lance is heavily designed around blocking attacks, make sure you know what attacks to block, and what attacks to dodge or avoid, as many endgame monsters have attacks that are not really worth blocking. You can bring armor skills that cater to blocking, dodging, or hybrid depending on the matchup and playstyle. Outside of endgame armor sets, you usually won't have enough slots to max out both guarding and evasion skills without sacrificing offensive skills. When it comes to guarding, instead of holding your regular guard, I usually recommend experimenting with counter thrust, power guard, guard dash, or counter claw to keep up your aggression. Feel free to experiment with different ways to counter everything. However, even regular guard can sometimes be useful, especially when you're still learning the moveset and timing of a monster. For mobility, use the guard dash plus leaping thrust to move around, or the dash attack to chase longer distances. For offense, your primary attack combo is either the triple poke combo, or triple poke into finishing thrust loop, but keep in mind that the finishing thrust will trip your teammates. As a bonus, the following lance attacks cannot be deflected. Any jumping attack, the leaping thrust, strong thrust, shield attack, finishing thrust and finishing twin thrust, so use them wisely. With that being said, I will end this video here. Hopefully this helped you understand how to use the lance. Thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.